Hey, what's up, guys? So, I was looking over the comment section on one of the previous videos, and I had a guy who asked about if I could maybe talk about shit tests. So, yeah, tonight we'll talk about that. And before I start, please remember to like and subscribe and comment below. You can also follow me on Instagram at Proud Masculine, which I'll link in the description. So, anyway, yeah, shit test. Shit tests are a real thing, and shit tests are a good thing. And I think a lot of people, and I've done it myself before I even knew about what shit tests were and the function of them. I viewed them as a bad thing. I viewed them as attitude and bitchiness and taking it personal or being dissatisfied or, just all the things that when there's a misunderstanding of how women operate, and a shit test can be perceived as those things. And a test is simply a procedure intended to establish the quality, reliability, or performance of something, especially before it is taken into widespread use. And so there it is. I mean, and the shit tests are no different. And the good thing is about a shit test is that that means the woman is interested in you. It means she's attracted. Whether it be a little shit test you get in the beginning, when you first meet a girl, or when you're well into an LTR or a marriage. A marriage is of 30, 40 years, which is practically unheard of these days. The woman is still going to test you because it's inevitable that you can't be on, your tip-top game all the time. You have to be aware, and, you have to stay vigilant and stay masculine and do all these things. But it's impossible just to keep doing all the time. And eventually there's going to be something there that's going to be neglected. And sometimes you're going to neglect giving her attention, or keeping your shit together, or just having that balance that you're supposed to have, that you're supposed to keep. And a woman's test is a way to point something out to you. And tests are subconscious, they are realized and intentional. So they come in many forms. And the typical ones you're going to deal with in relationships or in a relationship. Now, this is like, you're with one person, LTR, marriage, or comfort test and fitness test, which seem to be, the most prominent anyway. A comfort test just being is that, or are you emotionally invested? Is she important? Is she safe? It's usually when she's feeling neglected that, she'll offer up some sort of comfort test, just to see if you're invested. And then the fitness test is typically testing your manhood, testing your fucking masculinity, your frame. And so, and the test will come. The test will come, but that's a good thing. If she's testing, that means that she's interested and she's invested. And she wants to make sure that she's invested, that you're invested as much as she's invested. Whether it be she's invested in you and sees that weakness and is starting to question her investment into the thing, into the whole exchange, as if, is she in a good spot? Is she protected? Is she safe? Are you capable? And so yeah, that means that she's got skin in the game. And the important part of getting tested is that you recognize it's a test and not react emotionally. I mean, you should really never have an emotional outburst. It happens. It does happen every so often. But I mean, if because that means you just failed the test. You know, usually being able to address a comfort test and reassure her in some kind of way. And, you know, and sometimes it can be, it's not just because you're getting tested, it's going to be like a blatant test to where, you know, she's going to like call you out or insult your manhood or try to emasculate you. I don't think that's a test. That's disrespect. And there is a difference. There's a difference between being tested and being outright disrespected and having her being combative and bitchy, and which at that point you just remove your attention. Again, you don't react. You don't react emotionally. You don't jump into an emotional frame and participate in that. That's not your job. That's not your place in a relationship. It's really not your place as a man to react on something based on your emotions. And a woman's emotions shouldn't be triggering you anyway, because sometimes part of a fitness test is poking the bear a little bit to see if you're going to react, if you're going to get emotional with her, if you're going to jump into her frame. And if you do any of those, you have failed the test. And so anyhow, yeah, being able to distinguish the test and when you're being tested is and not taking it personal. You know, a lot of men don't know, and you know, in these days, you know, the way society is and the way men are raised, you know, you have a lot of guys that were brought up in a single mother household, you know, and they emulate a lot of feminine behavior when it comes to dealing with women, because that's what they have been brought up seeing, and how to cope and deal with things, and having to deal with their mother in that way, and her dealing with him in that way, you know, being that she's the role model, she's the leader. And they'll take a shit test as, you know, you are like you being disrespected or what have you, or no, it's totally natural, and there's no room for any man to emotionally react and jump into that frame with her because of a test. And, you know, keep in consideration that if you're being tested, it's for a reason. You know, there's some incongruence, or, you know, something you're lacking, and that's what is important. And look, it could be, you know, you're just starting to slip up on something. Maybe you have gotten lazy or lacked attention or something, and, you know, she senses a little weakness or senses a little distance. You know, and she's going to throw a little test. And it's, you know, you have to handle it as if, you know, especially like a fitness test. And like, for instance, on a date, if you showing up on a date and a girl's like, oh, why'd you wear that shirt? That shirt's ugly. And you look down and, I wore this just for you. I bought this yesterday. I wore this just for you. I'll make sure to wear it on the second date. You brush it off. It's no big deal. It's a girl being a girl. And you have to remember, sometimes these tests are going to come from a place of her experience. Majority of experience with men being disappointing. Most men do not know what the fuck they're doing. And like on a date, or in any, you know, anytime you have, any time in your life with women, they want you to get it, and they don't want to have to tell you how to get it. And so they've fallen for the, you know, this guy looks well put together. You know, he seems like he knows what he's doing. He looks good, seems confident, you know, only to have, you know, this guy just totally mess shit up. After she's done something like have sex with him, or, you know, kind of started to fall for him. And she thought she did such a great job of vetting this guy, and, you know, she was sure he was a rock solid motherfucker, and, you know, only to find out he's a chump, or, he's very emotionally reactive or emotionally unavailable. So they have been, their hypergamous filters have failed them in the past. So now the way to get around that and to make sure is, so she thought this guy was a strong guy who had frame and knew how to handle women and was emotionally stable and mature. And she's thinking, I've had this happen before, and I'm getting that feeling again, but I'm not going to rely on, what my perception is right now, because I could be caught up just because he's hot, or, he's doing a good job because it's new. Let me throw this little test and see how he reacts. Let me test his confidence. Let me see if I can get him to react to a little petty insult. And what you basically want to do is, those little type of tests where she's looking for a reaction. She's just probing. She's just probing to see, if you got your shit together and you know how to handle that and you're unaffected. And the best thing to do is just, in that moment, she throws a little test, you take it as humor. And what you want to do is think of it as you're dealing with a little 10-year-old. And you wouldn't find, if some little kid came up to you and, called you a name, you're a stinky poo-poo, and would you go off on this kid? No. You'd laugh it off. No, how cute. Little kids making fun of me or calling me a name. Isn't that cute? And you humor the kid for a second, and all right, run along, little kid. It's the same thing. But no, and women, and this is where the complementary, the masculine and feminine complement one another. Because a woman, when she's with a man who's a truly masculine man and is masculine center, and you're that strong, confident guy, that can be shit that comes up. You could be ultra stressed. You could have you could have been getting hit some curveballs lately, and you kind of sulking a little bit, or maybe you inadvertently complain too much. And because believe me, every now and then, if you can, and especially if you're with somebody for a while and they know, like, hey, what's up? You look like you got something on your mind, and you've had something happen. Occasionally, if you have to have that talk about, okay, this is what happened, but you present it as, this is a thing that happened, not a huge deal. I'm working through it. It's not a huge deal. It's not going to derail me. And you give a solution to that, you're being that masculine guy because you're solution oriented. That's not a big deal, but you don't want to get into being a chronic complainer and whiner to your girl, to your woman, to your significant other. That's not her. She's not your sounding board. She's not that. Now, you being the man, yeah, you are hers to an extent. Now, if it's just constantly complaining and whining and stuff about every single day, you got to know when to cut that shit off. And, there can be in a lot of time for she comes home from work or comes in from wherever, or you haven't seen her all day, and clearly there's something, you're about to get kind of let on. She's going to let some shit out. And if it just becomes too frequent, because it doesn't benefit her to just be able to constantly complain and, go on and on about her stuff and start being the victim and, woe is me type. You tell her, okay, baby, look, you got 20 minutes. Let's hear it. Tell me everything. And then you can kind of limit that shit. But never do you want to be the one that you bring in your worries and your problems and your stress to her. That's your shit to deal with. You have other friends and you have men that you can hammer that shit out with. And the good thing about the men is they won't lose attraction for you, and they won't lose respect for you, and they won't lose trust in you, and they won't see you as incapable and weak. And at some point, your friends are going to say, dude, that's enough of that shit. I'm so sick of hearing about that. Like, come on, get over that shit. And you're like, all right, there's the check. All right, that's enough. Your woman is not going to tell you that. She'll listen. She'll dry up too. And, she'll pull back. But then, if you in this weakened state of mind and you constantly complaining, or, a few times a week you coming to her with some shit that she's just perceiving as you can't fucking handle life, is what it sounds. All that expressing and emoting, that's what that amounts to. You can't handle your shit. How can I trust you to handle my shit and our shit if you can't deal with this stuff? You're unreliable. And that's not attractive. Anyway, I digress. We got off a little bit there. But yeah, so testing is a good thing. It's how you respond to it. That is what it's going to be. The more you pass, the less you get tested. She throws a little test at you and, you like, what do you mean? Yeah. And you start being combative and dealing with her, and you jump into her frame, an emotional frame, and become emotionally reactive and combative. You just fail. And you're going to get tested more. It's not going to be good. There's going to be friction. There's going to be that weird energy to where, because she's going to see you as what you're being as feminine. And a feminine woman cannot be comfortable and feel secure and turned on by and attracted to a feminine man and you may not be, but I mean, you could be acting like that at the moment. And typically you can base the way she reacts afterward, and how it begins to go a little while after the testing or what you think is a test. And believe me, you'll know that it's the test, because you sense it coming. Like, something's coming. She's acting a little different, being a little quieter, just kind of not paying attention to you as much. Or whereas before she'd be asking your opinion on every little bitty thing. That's a good thing. That means she's asking you like, hey, I look up to you. What do you think about this? Help me with this. She's looking for you to lead and mentor. Like, not literally be a mentor, but you understand. Excuse me. And you notice, like, she's not asking your opinion, or she'll be talking about, oh, so I was talking to so-and-so, and I asked him about this, and you're thinking, well, why the fuck didn't you ask me about that? I could easily help you with that. Yeah, that's usually a pretty good indicator, things like that something's coming. Or that's a good indicator for you to, kind of reflect on how things have been going between the two of you and how have you been showing up. And, but yeah, just to recognize that it's a test. You stay in your frame and you take the test for what it is. That's just her way of getting reassurance. And look, also, playful testing. She can be being playful and teasing you. She could be intentionally trying to get you a little worked up and agitated for attraction. Like, do you remember on in the schoolyard, if a little girl came up to you and punched you in the arm, she wasn't trying to pick a fight. That means she liked you. And that's the same thing. Adult women do it too. Tease and poke and prod and, just to get the attraction up. She might want some really good sex later. Some really good animal sex later, and just getting you riled up. And you got to recognize that shit and capitalize on it. And have fun with it. But yeah, the last thing you want to do is see tests as disrespect, as insulting. You certainly don't want to, react and blow up and take it personal as if it's a personal attack on you. I mean, sure, it'd be easier if women just came out like men do hey man, I don't like the way this shit's going lately. Or, man, you acting like a bitch lately. What's going on? That's not what they're going to do. Because like I said before, they just want you to get it. And they just there to help point that shit out to you. Now, if you met a girl, she's throwing you some tests, say you're hitting it off and you're kind of seeing each other more and more, but she just becomes you're just constantly getting tested, she could just be a bitch. She could just be somebody that's unpleasant and you don't want to be around. So don't think that, consistently, and I guess that would fall into the category of disrespect and being difficult. You don't pass those tests. You ignore that shit. Absolutely ignore, remove your attention. Best is you probably just move on if you're dealing with that. But, yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I answered your question. If not, feel free to make a comment and we'll go back over it and we'll readdress, or if you have something more specific. And again, if you have some other stuff you'd like to hear about, please drop it in the comments and I'll be sure to get to it. In the meantime, like and subscribe. Y'all have a great night.